Handles, straps and loops make or break a project. Today we're going to look at 3 different methods of dealing with these objects. First of all, we're going to do with a strap. And our strap, we're going to use some PU on the back. And we're going to have just some quilting cotton on the top. The difference in width when we cut our straps needs to be about 1/2 inch. So the base needs to be 1/2 inch wider. Now I'm going to mark a centre line down the middle widthways on our PU. Just used chalk, pencil. So we're going to leave that till later. Now we're going to fold our strap. Now our cloth strap's got some interfacing on the underside of it. So I've just used some Violin. And what we're going to do is we're going to press the Violin on, then we're going to press the strap in half widthways, and then we're going to open the strap up again and press each of the raw seams to the centre. You might have a better way of doing this. Second side, we need to make sure that we actually butt the raw edges together so there's no gap, so the length of strap that we're making is totally even. I'm working on a silicone mat, which is not a heat transfer mat, and it's great to put pins in and to iron on. Awesome to have beside your machine. Let's put that aside for the time being, and let's go to the machine. Now we're going to actually do the same sort of technique, but we're going to do it with some PU. We're going to change the foot to a glide foot. Could be a roller, it could be a walking foot, or this one here is just a Teflon foot. I'm going to change my needle to being a jeans 80. I could leave the needle in what it was, but I'm going to make holes. Ideally, a 7511 embroidery needle would just as good. It's got the same point as the jeans and nice and fine, but I've changed up to a jeans 80. Now let's put our foot on and thread our machine. We've got the same thread top and bottom, but what I want to do is we want to zigzag down the edge of this. Now we want to butt the 2 edges together, and they should be sitting on top of that line we've drawn, and with a wide zigzag and a long zigzag, so full length, full width, we want to actually baste these seams together. This stitching will come out later, so I'm just using a very light thread. I'm actually using our embroidery thread. It saves having to glue this, because gluing is going to make even top stitching a little bit harder. And also the gluing with the PU, sometimes there you find that it shows through on the right side. We don't want that. So we're just tacking this through with a zigzag. When we take it out, it will leave little minute holes which you just will not ever see. And you'll see that along the way. Let's change our foot back to a straight stitching sole. This is a patchwork sole. And let's go back to our iron. Let's give this a light press. Now I'm using an applique mat, a see-through applique mat. That transfers heat, and it makes sure that we don't actually put any of the direct sole of the iron onto the PU product, because that would melt it or mark it. So the applique mat prevents that from happening. It's a great pressing mat. Now we need to apply the other layer to the strip. So what we're going to do is, with the joined side up or the wrong side up, we're going to spray baste it and then just lay it onto the PU strap. So it's wrong side to wrong side, or join to join, where you butted those seams together. So it's wrong side to wrong side. Centralize it so we've got an even strip of colour either side of our fabric. And it looks like a very fine piping from the right side. pressing it just with my hands, to stretching it out slightly. So let's start at our blunt end, which we've got no overhang. And with a longer stitch, we're going to edge stitch this fabric onto our PU strap. When I say longer stitch, 3.5, use your fingers as a break, so as that the PU runs along the edge of your fingers, like a seam guide, but I do this quite a lot when I'm top stitching or edge stitching. It really helps your work look very, very straight. Just feeding that edge in because it's not been pinned or clipped, it's just glued. And let's continue all the way out to the end. Okay, that's one side, and let's do the other side, which will be a little bit faster because it's already in position. Start from the very end. So my finger is actually still acting as a guide. There we go. So that strap is actually nice and evenly stitched. Now let's just unpick our zigzag stitching. Try and pull the thread out from the inside as well. See, with a little bit of heat and rubbing with your fingers, now those stitches will eventually fade away. So there we have a strap. Now let's have a look at putting a buckle on or something along one end. I've got a D-ring here, for instance, so I'll be threading that on. And for that to be finished, it needs to be turned and then turned again. So you're going to have, so it needs to be turned under so as it's nicely finished, because it can't be raw. And you could put a rivet in through here, but if you need to stitch it with your machine, that's pretty thick. Now, some machines will actually work very well doing this. Then some machines definitely won't, because it will disengage your top tension and all you'll get is a bird's nest on the underside. So we go back and forth and we stitch between, just on the fabric, not on the PU. Don't go off the edge. My suggestion is that you leave a little extension of fabric which you fold over. That's already had some glue on it, so just stick that down. So that end is now finished. Thread your D-ring on. Make one fold. And there you have it, much, much thinner and easier to stitch by a domestic machine. Okay, so that's just stuck in there, and that's going to sit inside there. It's going to be perfect. Much, much easier to stitch, just through the 2 layers of PU rather than the 3. And 3 on a fold. Now let's change our foot so as that we can change our position of our needle. Now I'm going to tell you why. So normally I would use my straight stitch sole, my patchwork sole, but on machines that have a drop-in bobbin case, the bobbin case is slightly offset to where the needle is. So the hook is slightly to the left side, so you need to put your needle to the left side of the actual presser foot to ensure you don't get too many or any, when I say too many, any dropped stitches while you're top stitching. So you have to be aware of that. So you need to put your needle over to the left hand side if you have a drop-in bobbin system. So I like to start that side, and we need probably a little bit more fold over for that foot. We don't want the foot to be on top of the D-ring. Just push that over a little bit. And now we'll do our first row of stitching. We have a button on the side of the foot, and that button stops the foot from moving. It works like a humper jumper, so it means that when we're going over bulk, there'll be no resistance. It will just take a stitch automatically. So use that little button on the side of your foot if you have one. If you don't, you need to use something that's going to pick the back of the foot up. And you'll see that later in my videos where I use something to go underneath the foot. Just stitch slowly, you don't have to be rushing. Just stitch slowly, and we're going to be going to and fro along the same stitching line again, pushing that button in to keep the foot level. And I'm just stitching on the fabric. I'm not going out to the very edge of the PU. I'm not having my needle graze the outside edge of the PU either. Right, take off our threads from the back. I generally would stitch from the other side, not like I have here, where you stitch from that side generally, because it just makes it look better from the top. But I want you to see what we were doing. Now look at the comparison. So look at that thickness compared to that thickness. Very, very different. Beautiful and even, very professional looking, an asset to any project. And those little zigzag holes are slowly disappearing. Ideal for bag straps, all sorts of purposes. Let's have a look at making a loop. So when I say a loop could be for putting a D-ring on for a handbag or a purse at the end of the zips. It could be a wrist strap, could be lots of things, but the technique is the same. It's the same as what we did previously for that piece of contrast fabric on our PU strap. We're going to be folding the fabric in half. This has not got any interfacing on it, by the way. This is just the underside of the fabric. Pressing the raw edge to the center crease. Then turning and doing the same the other side. Press the raw edge to the center crease. Make sure those edges are buttoned together. And then fold again, so we've got the fold edges on top of each other, which we can then stitch down, and we've got a strap or a belt loop or loops. But should we want to make a drawstring, we need to finish the ends of this. Now to finish the ends of this, there's a very simple way of doing this. So let's open out one of the ends. Open it up, wrong sides together, then fold that in half again. It can be either forward or back, it does not matter. And we're going to stitch over that end. Now it looks odd, you think, how's this going to work? But it's a very clever little simple way of doing this. Stitch over the end. I'm stitching in about 1/4 inch from the raw end of this strap or this loop. Trim back to a generous 1/8 of an inch or 3 to 4 mils. Just trim back. Make sure it's straight. Now we're going to turn twice. We're going to turn out the first time. Okay, and then we're going to turn it one more time. And all those edges go into the center and side. Let's fold that. Let's get a pokey, pointy thing. I'm just using a clover pointer. Let's just put that point out. Beautiful and finished, so it's a lovely envelope corner. Easy for us to be able to stitch. Just make sure that it's pushed out quite firmly so it's quite square. Now, secrets. Put a bit of tear away underneath your loop end, because what that will do, it will just help the actual work feed through the machine. Otherwise, you might find there's a slight bit of hesitation because the loop, the strip that we're using is quite thin, and so therefore it won't make contact with all the feed dogs. So having a bit of tear away underneath it means that it makes true contact. So the two folded edges are sitting on top of each other and we're edge stitching them together. If you have a drawstring, you need to do that finish on both ends. Okay, just rip a piece of tearaway off. I quite often have tearaway near my machine because it's very handy. See, and all we do is tear. Stitching is perfect, no hesitation, no glitches. You could do this when you're top stitching the point of a collar, because the machine quite often hesitates. There we have it. Let's pull off our tearaway. And there we have a loop or a drawstring. Now let's do one more thing. Let's make a handle. So I'm putting a 1 inch strip. My handle is going to be 1 inch finished. A 1 inch strip of bag stabilizer along one edge of my handle fabric. Now my handle fabric is 4 times the width of my bag stiffener. You could use webbing that's the wrong colour inside a handle and just cover it with fabric like we're about to do. Before you get to the end, just snip that piece of stabilizer short so that we don't have any extra bulk when we turn that seam out, because we're going to do a similar finish as we did with the loop strap. Let's press our raw edges to the middle like we've done previously. Then we fold our folded edges on top of each other. And that's how it's going to be finished, like so. We're going to finish it the same way. We don't want to actually roll that down because it's going to be really bulky, so we're going to do the same thing. Raw edges together, right sides together, raw edges together, then fold that over quite firmly and stitch across the end. Try not to stitch on the bag stabilizer or webbing that's inside this. We want it to be quite the same thickness, so it needs to be a little bit thin at the end, otherwise it will look bulky. Turn and turn, push your end out, and there we have a really, really nice finished end. Okay, there we go, nice square end. And we're going to top stitch this. Let's make sure you push that little step down. Okay, we're going to top stitch. We're going to change our foot up to what we call a bi-level foot. Now, a bi-level foot means that we have a step on one side, and this step will be on the right side of this one, and that step runs along the edge of your fabric that you're trying to top stitch. So there's a guide where we actually set the edge up to. It's on the foot, on the front of the foot. And what it does, it just won't allow the fabric to run any further past that step, which is so the fabric will not run past to the right from where it is now. And look how even that stitching is. And it's fast, so you can get a left and a right. Some breeds of machines have one that has a step on either side that you'd swivel around. All sorts of options. It's actually a commercial foot which has been borrowed, and because it's a flat foot on the bottom and it's got a little bit longer base, there's no hesitation starting and turning corners. Lovely and even, very professional looking, and on the left or right hand side it's exactly 1/4 of an inch out to the actual edge of the foot. Good for top stitching, especially denim. There we have it. just like I bought one. A strap to go on our bag.